It was just a smile. Nothing provocative, nothing planned, just two women sharing a fleeting moment of warmth under the Georgia sun. Sarah Thompson had just wrestled her golden retriever away from the mailboxes, her jeans dusted with dirt, her coffee half spilled, and her sleep clocking in at barely 4 hours. Across from her stood Emily Carter, barefoot, clutching a rolled-up interior design magazine, her sunglasses hiding the traces of last night's tears. Neither had intended to chat. But when Jake Miller, the new neighbor, strolled by with oversized sunglasses, Bluetooth earbuds, and a comically large smoker rolling into his yard, Sarah let out a chuckle. All that for a burger? Emily grinned. Must be grilling for the whole street. Jake laughed, shrugging. Guilty. That was eat a quick, shared laugh. Then silence. Back to the morning routine. No one shouted. No one lingered. No one broke any obvious rules. But Willow Creek Estates wasn't just any suburb. It was ruled by one of Georgia's strictest homeowners associations, where rules weren't suggestions, they were commandments, etched in stone by people with too much time and too little leniency. The HOA guarded the community character with fervor, and its president, Margaret Hensley, wielded her authority like a monarch. The next morning, certified letters arrived at Sarah and Emily's doorsteps. Sarah tore hers open, assuming it was a mistake. Emily's arrived later that day. The notices were identical. Violation of Section 4.2. Engaging in unsanctioned, excessive social interaction with fellow residents without prior HOA board notification. Incident recorded April 3, 8:14 a.m., near Community Mail Drop 3. Corrective action required. Response due within 48 hours. Sarah read it 3 times, then laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Emily texted her minutes later. Did you get this too? What even is Section 4.2? Neither knew a smile could be labeled a disruption. They didn't know the HOA had cameras trained on the mailboxes or that someone had reported them within minutes. They certainly didn't know their friendly exchange would be deemed a breach of community decorum. In any other neighborhood, this would have been a joke. In Willow Creek, the HOA's bylaws were scripture, and its enforcers were zealots in pressed blouses. What began as a smile was now an incident, and the punishment was just beginning. Sarah thought it was a hoax, chuckling at the glossy HOA letterhead tucked between a delivery slip and a utility bill. Emily laughed too, texting, "What is this, Puritan suburbia?" They planned to confront the issue at the next HOA meeting, maybe with coffee, maybe with a lawyer. But when they attended, everything shifted. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse, polished wood chairs, tepid lemonade, and cream-colored agendas. Half the attendees were retirees with notepads, the other half sat in silence. At 6 p.m., Margaret Hensley entered like a judge in her own courtroom, crisp white shirt, pearl necklace, clipboard in hand, no smile. "We are here to address the violation of Section 4.2, she announced, and to discuss corrective measures for the community's benefit. Sarah raised her hand. "With all due respect, this is about a smile and a joke with a neighbor." Margaret didn't blink. "To preserve harmony," she said, her voice polished and practiced. "Violators will serve corrective standing time. 3 hours, hands bound, public signage required." A cough broke the silence. A paper rustled. No one spoke. Emily's voice cut through. "You want us to what?" Margaret explained calmly. They were to appear on the HOA lawn Saturday at 9 a.m. Their wrists would be bound symbolically with duct tape, and they'd wear signs stating their offense. Failure to comply meant a $5,000 fine and eviction proceedings. Sarah scanned the room. No one met her gaze. It was absurd, surreal, but undeniably real. Saturday arrived, the air heavy at 92 degrees by 9 a.m. The HOA lawn was pristine, freshly mowed, not a blade out of place. 2 folding chairs sat nearby, not for Sarah or Emily, but for board observers. Margaret arrived early with her clipboard and 3 witnesses. The women stood side by side, duct tape binding their wrists tight enough to pinch, loose enough to dodge a lawsuit. Around their necks hung cardboard signs in HOA-approved font. "I disrupted community order." Neighbors passed by. Some stared, some whispered, a few recorded. A kid on a scooter laughed. A teenager tossed a melting slushie near Sarah's feet, splashing her ankle. He didn't look back. No one intervened. For 3 hours, they stood sweating, silent, shamed. The duct tape stuck to their skin. The heat pressed down. One board member offered a lukewarm water bottle, but only after the timer stopped. To the HOA, this was policy, not punishment. Correction, not cruelty. But to Sarah and Emily, it was a ritual, a display of power, a warning. This is what happens when you smile without permission. It started with one video, a shaky clip shot by a teen across the street. Laughter crackled off camera. Sarah and Emily's duct-taped wrists and unreadable faces gleamed in the sun. The caption read, "My HOA did this to two moms for chatting with a neighbor." By nightfall, it hit Reddit. By morning, it spread to TikTok, stitched with reactions, parodies, and outrage. Twitter threads exploded, YouTube breakdowns followed, then podcasts, memes, and Instagram carousels titled, "When Suburbia Becomes Surveillance." The hashtags multiplied: HOA punishment, smile and suffer, duct tape justice. Comments poured in. Is this Georgia or a dystopia? Handmaid's Tale, but make it cul-de-sac. HOAs are just petty dictatorships. The story went viral because it was absurd to ignore. People craved real-life absurdity over scandal. In Willow Creek, the mood was colder. At Sarah's bakery job, her boss called her in. "You're great," he said, avoiding her eyes. "But customers are asking questions." The owner's uncomfortable. She was let go, no misconduct, just too much spotlight. Emily's daughter, Lily, came home early from school after locking herself in a bathroom stall. Classmates had taunted her. "Is your mom the HOA weirdo? You guys into some kinky stuff?" No teacher intervened. At the grocery store, Emily overheard. "That's the one from the video." The 3-hour shame stretched into days, weeks. Their inboxes filled with half support, half hate. Some called them heroes, others attention seekers. Sarah unplugged her doorbell cam after someone left a roll of duct tape on her porch at 2 a.m. Then came a ping. Sarah opened her laptop to an email. Subject: Legal inquiry, possible civil rights violation. From Laura Bennett, sent at 3:02 a.m. Sarah's hands shook, not from fear, but from hope. Laura wasn't just any lawyer, she was a retired federal prosecutor, and she wasn't chasing clout. "I saw the footage. I've reviewed the HOA bylaws. If you're ready, I'd like to discuss ending this for good." The tide began to turn, not online, but in reality. Laura Bennett was done with law. After 22 years prosecuting civil rights violations and racketeering cases from Virginia to Alabama, she'd retired to Savannah, trading courtrooms for gardening. Her law degree hung, forgotten, on a wall. Her inbox was quiet. Then her 17-year-old daughter, Mia, stormed in, phone glowing with the viral HOA video. "You said America protects freedom." "This isn't freedom, Mom." Laura sighed, another internet outrage. But she watched. The duct tape, the signs, the silent neighbors. She didn't speak when the video ended. She opened her laptop, dug into Georgia statutes, HOA codes, and Willow Creek's bylaws. By sunrise, she was making calls, pulling records, her old instincts kicking in. Within 72 hours, she was in Willow Creek, navy pantsuit dusted off, sitting in a cafe across from Sarah and Emily. They looked drained, wary. Laura didn't mince words. "What was done to you wasn't just wrong, it was unconstitutional. They violated your rights under color of law, using shame as punishment without due process. That's federally actionable." Sarah leaned forward. "You're saying this is illegal?" Laura nodded. "You're the face of a civil rights lawsuit." Silence. A moment of possibility. "If you're ready," Laura said, "we fight." For the first time in weeks, Sarah and Emily didn't feel like pariahs. They felt like plaintiffs. And Laura felt like a lawyer again. Laura wasn't building a viral moment, she was building a federal case. To dismantle an HOA acting like a private fiefdom, she needed evidence, not outrage. The lawsuit was filed under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, a statute used to challenge rogue authorities. It had toppled corrupt police departments and abusive school boards. Now it targeted a suburban HOA. That alone made headlines. But the real bombshell came in an anonymous email. No name, just an attachment and 5 words. She said more than that. The sender's address was masked, likely a disgruntled former board member. Laura opened the file, dozens of HOA emails. Most were mundane, sprinkler schedules, noise complaints. Then she found a thread labeled Disruption Protocol Mailbox Incident, dated hours after Sarah and Emily's smile. Margaret Hensley wrote to the board, "If we allow free socialization, what's next? Yard sales? Petitions? This is how chaos begins. We maintain order through visibility. Humiliation works. Make them examples." Another email addressed a board member's legal concerns. "Our bylaws grant wide discretion. Public correction sends the clearest message. Soft consequences breed disobedience." It was a manifesto of control, not community. Laura highlighted every line, adding it to her binder. Thompson and Carter v. Willow Creek HOA. She lingered on one phrase. Soft consequences breed disobedience. It sounded like dystopian fiction, but it was real. She called Sarah and Emily. They didn't care about the rule. They cared about the warning. "You weren't the problem, you were the example." Sarah's voice was steady. "Then let's be the example that stops them." This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was a reckoning. Willow Creek became a national story. CNN aired a 6-minute segment on the women bound for smiling. The footage duct tape, heat waves, cardboard signs played on loop. An anchor's closing line went viral. Some neighborhoods build fences to keep danger out. Others use them to keep control in. The ACLU called it extrajudicial punishment, warning that HOAs were acting like unregulated mini-governments. Petitions sprang up, "Abolish abusive HOAs, justice for Sarah and Emily." Thousands signed. Law professors wrote op-eds. Civil rights groups rallied. John Oliver's team requested case details. But not everyone cheered. Local officials, once cozy with Willow Creek's discipline, issued vague calls for updated practices. Margaret Hensley stayed silent but defiant, telling a local paper, "It was correction, not punishment. If structure bothers people, they shouldn't live in structured communities." The quote backfired spectacularly. While the HOA scrambled, Sarah and Emily acted. At a town hall in Macon, they spoke publicly for the first time since the lawn. Emily took the mic, her voice steady. "This isn't about duct tape. It's about people suffering behind HOA walls, afraid to speak, afraid to be seen, afraid to smile." The room hushed, then erupted in applause. Questions followed, then invitations to panels, forums, and hearings. They weren't victims anymore, they were advocates, reluctant leaders of a broader fight. Laura watched from an Atlanta hotel, binder open, coffee in hand. "Give the truth a microphone," she murmured, "and it sings." 9 months later, the federal courthouse was packed. No cameras, just reporters, interns, and citizens who'd followed the case from hashtag to headline. Judge Evelyn Harper, a no-nonsense veteran, presided. When the video played Sarah and Emily bound, sweating, silent even, she paused, removing her glasses. The courtroom was still, the projectors hum, the only sound. Then Laura read the emails. "Humiliation works. Make them examples. Soft consequences breed disobedience." Judge Harper stopped her. "I've heard enough. Proceed with summation." Margaret Hensley testified, poised as ever, her answers clipped. "I was maintaining order. The community relies on leadership." Laura's cross-examination was surgical. "Is public shaming an acceptable form of governance?" Margaret hesitated, "Just a second. It depends on the context." That pause spoke louder than her words. The verdict came the next morning. In Thompson and Carter v. Willow Creek HOA, this court finds for the plaintiffs. The actions, authorized by President Margaret Hensley, violated civil liberties under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. Damages awarded, $1.2 million. Gasps, then silence. The judge continued, "The HOA must reform its bylaws to align with federal due process protections." Margaret Hensley is permanently barred from serving in any HOA or public leadership role in the United States. Sarah squeezed Emily's hand. Outside, Emily spoke to reporters. "This isn't just for us. It's for everyone silenced by rules meant to control, not protect." That afternoon, the Department of Housing and Urban Development announced a nationwide investigation into HOA misconduct. Willow Creek went from punchline to precedent. Sarah and Emily didn't stop with the verdict. They could have taken the money, moved, and vanished. Instead, they built the HOA Accountability Network. Launched 3 months later with a $500 website, its tagline read, "Private doesn't mean lawful." The mission, legal aid, emotional support, and advocacy for HOA harassment victims. Stories flooded Ina, Nevada man evicted for a non-beige garage, a Texas veteran fined for a too-tall flagpole, an Arizona family forced to remove a wheelchair ramp. Some stories were absurd, others chilling. Sarah managed emails, Emily ran Zoom support calls. Laura joined as legal advisor, drafting model legislation. The movement outgrew one lawn, becoming about liberty at home. A documentary, Gates of Control, premiered at Sundance, winning an audience award. It ended with Sarah and Emily on the HOA lawn, holding a banner, "No more shame, no more silence." Their network helped 93 families secure pro bono legal aid, overturned 7 HOA policies, and referred 300 people to mental health support. They spoke on panels, podcasts, even Capitol Hill. They gave voice to a silent frustration. Home should feel safe, not ruled. Sarah enrolled in community college, studying social work to help others. Neighbors now waved, some shyly, some respectfully. Emily wrote a memoir, taped but unbroken, a raw blend of journal entries and court records. It hit the New York Times bestseller list in weeks, with book clubs dissecting its themes of shame and control. Journalists exposed rogue HOAs. Lawmakers pushed bills to limit HOA power. The question shifted from what did the homeowner do, to who gave these boards the right. Laura returned to Savannah, consulting on civil rights education. Nominated for a Civil Liberties Award, her 43-second speech ended. Justice isn't loud, it's consistent. Sometimes it starts with 2 women who smiled at the wrong time. In Willow Creek, the gates remained, the lawns pristine. But the air had shifted. The community that once judged now held barbecues on that lawn. Kids played, neighbors chatted freely. Each year, on the lawsuit's anniversary, they held a picnic. No permits, no dress codes, no silence. Margaret Hensley faded from mention, but the signs-eyed disrupted community order became a joke, a badge, a t-shirt. The law wasn't a gated privilege. A smile wasn't a crime. It was where humanity began. And in Willow Creek, it was where freedom lived.